So did you know Bangalore has its very own version of the soup noodles? Well, something very close. So when I was studying my masters a few years ago on the periphery of Bangalore, I discovered these carts that had these huge canisters of broth, and they served it with some vermicelli and meatballs. So yeah, soup noodles. You can also have it with bread, but the one I'm going to be replicating today is the one with vermicelli and meatballs. The only difference is I'm going to keep it completely vegan. That's right, completely vegan. I hope you guys enjoy this recipe. And by the way, welcome back to the Ground Cinnamon. You will need a couple of inches of ginger, some pearl onions aka Madras onions, about 10 of them or so, slivered garlic. Now I like using slivered garlic, it looks a lot more pretty, but if you like you can chop it up. These are about 10 cloves of garlic, curry leaves, you gotta love curry leaves, come on. The hero of this dish, turmeric. You'll need a teaspoonful of it. Green chilies, now this is completely optional, but if you want that additional kick, green chilies. 2 teaspoons of brown sugar. Now you could also use honey, but you really want something sweet to balance out that whole dish. Tamarind water, this is a tablespoon of tamarind water, a couple of tablespoons of coconut oil, salt and pepper of course, 2 cups of water, and finally coconut milk. This is a cup full of coconut milk. If you get your hands on it, try using coconut cream. The product is going to be so much better, so much richer. Now getting underway, into the soup pot goes the coconut oil. Now I wouldn't say you have an option with the coconut oil because this dish is about that classic combination, that classic melody created between ginger, turmeric and coconut oil. It is so good, it is so fulfilling. Once your coconut oil starts heating up, once it's come to temperature, add your onions. Now if you don't have pearl onions, you can replace it with 1 small onion chopped. I like using pearl onions because they tend to be a little more strong, and by the time they cook through, they're going to disappear into the broth. Now as the pearl onions cook, they look like they're about to burst, and that is your cue to add the ginger and the garlic. Now let me take this opportunity to plead to you to not use ginger garlic paste. The flavor will be so inferior. If you put in a little more effort and use the fresh ingredients, you will really enjoy this broth. Now toast off the ginger garlic for about a minute, after which you want to add your curry leaves. Let them dance around for a few seconds and add the turmeric. Now you want to toast off your turmeric for less than 20 seconds. If you take a little more time, it might burn. Now depending on what kind of heat you want from your chili, do you want a massive burst right at the beginning or do you want a tiny little spike right at the end? You will add the chili accordingly. So if you want a massive burst, you will add it with the onions right at the beginning. If not, you will add it later, like I am. So once you've added the 2 cups of water, add the chili. That's again, if you want the heat right at the end. Now you want to let this cook, you want to let this come to a boil and cook off for about 10 minutes or so. This has been going for about 10 minutes, the flavors have come together beautifully. And now, seasoning time. I'm going to go in with 1 teaspoon of salt, about 10 turns of the pepper mill, always freshly ground black pepper, and in goes the tamarind water. Finally, in goes the 2 teaspoons of sugar, remember, some balance. And now what we're going to wait for is for this liquid to cool off significantly. So working with coconut milk could prove to be tricky, and that is because coconut milk does split. So if your liquid is really hot and you're going to go in with your coconut milk, it is going to split. There are 2 ways out. One is you reduce the temperature of your broth, and that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm going to cool it off slightly. Or you could temper your coconut milk. So you take a little bit of the hot broth and little by little you add it to your coconut milk, bring it up to temperature as much as the broth, and then add it to the broth. What's going to happen is it's not going to split. You can choose what you want to do. The second thing I want to talk about is the tamarind pulp. Now a lot of us might not have tamarind pulp, but what is this job of this tamarind pulp? It is to add some degree of wholesomeness to the mouthfeel when you have your soup. So you could replace it with any liquid that adds that additional wholesomeness, that additional umami. So you could add soy sauce, fish sauce, Worcestershire sauce. We spoke about this earlier. It's going to add a bit of that wholesomeness. It's going to make it more fun, more pleasurable to drink. Anything that adds umami. I've not tried adding Marmite yet. Maybe I'll try that next. The liquid has cooled off slightly and in goes the coconut milk. Look at that. Gorgeous. By the way, the broth is ready and it's time to move to our vermicelli and some vegan meatballs. Vermicelli, or as we like to call it semia, you must remember is a pasta. Though this is made of rice, it's still a pasta, so the same rules apply. 8 times the water, and the water has to be heavily seasoned. I mean heavily. So I've gone in with 1 tablespoon, and once your water begins to boil, dunk in the pasta. From this point, all that we're going to wait for is for the vermicelli to soften up, and by softening up, I mean al dente. You want a little bit of a bite so it's more fun to eat, and once it's reached al dente, you want to drain it, oil it maybe, and let's move on to making some vegan meatballs. For the meatballs, I'm going to use green peas. Did I just hear you boo? Come on, green peas are awesome, especially if they're frozen green peas. You know why? Because the beauty of frozen green peas is that they are already cooked. So all you have to do is give them a quick blanch in some warm water and they're ready. Now because this is a quick and easy recipe, all of these ingredients are going to go straight into the food processor. So for flavor, I'm going to add some aromats in the form of 1 onion, 5 cloves of garlic, some coriander leaves. Now I'm going to season all of this with some salt and pepper. And finally, I want this fritter to fluff up. I want it to absorb more broth, which is why I'm going to add some baking powder. The baking powder is also going to help the fritter cook through. Into this, I'm going to add 1/2 of the green peas and I'm going to grind it into a fine, smooth paste. Now at this point, you can add so many more aromatics. You could add mint, green chilies, maybe some ginger, but keep it simple because the soup already has so much flavor. You don't want too much of a clash between the fritter and the soup. The second half of the peas, I'm going to grind it, but I'm going to keep it a little more coarse to retain a little bit of a bite. After which, I'm going to combine both the sets of peas and add a binding agent. I'm going to add some flour. I'm going to add about 1/4 of a cup. All that I'm looking for is that when it goes into the hot oil, they don't burst open. All you want to do is shape them. You can shape them into balls, pancakes, patties. I'm going to make them into tiny little falafel-like patties, after which I'm going to shallow fry it. The reason I'm going to shallow fry it and not deep fry, don't get me wrong, deep frying is amazing, but shallow frying gives this amazing crust, which I really love. When you get frying, you want the oil at a medium-high temperature, after which what you're aiming for is a deep golden brown crust on both sides of the patty. Something like that. Let's get plating. A rich broth, some vermicelli, and a vegan meatball. Really fulfilling, really awesome. But I've pimped it up with some ivy gourd salad, some garlic, roasted garlic, and a chili oil. And if you're interested in this chili oil, I have a video for it, for which I've left the link in the description box below. So you've had a long day at work, you really don't want to order in, and you don't want to put in effort in the kitchen either. This is your go-to recipe. It is so easy to make, it hardly takes any time, and it is flavor heaven. It's also texture heaven. There are 3 different kinds of textures, just beautiful. Now for those who are disappointed that I made a vegan meatball, let me tell you, to make a regular meatball, be it beef, pork or chicken, the recipe is exactly the same. Just replace the peas with the meat and you will have nailed it. So do make this at home. And if you want to support the ground cinnamon, do hit the subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching.